Hey everyone. So, I was tagged by Maryellen from the channel Sensational After 60. I will link, from now on I will be linking the community channel below. And if you ever see an asterisk, that means there is a change. So probably more women to the community. But she had tagged me to do the do's and don'ts for your younger self tag. So, you know, when I thought about this, I thought, right away I thought, well, you drink more water and don't lay out in the sun and, those types of things. But then I thought, I really thought about this because I'm like, really, what would I tell my younger self? So, I'm going to try to start with the don'ts first because I always like to look today at the glass full. Never mind half full, because I used to look at the glass being empty. So I would say that the first thing that I would tell my younger self is don't be a people pleaser. As some of you know or don't know, I have been in recovery. God willing, it will be 21 years in June. I will be sober. So, before I got sober and in my addiction, I was a huge people pleaser. And I didn't realize I was that kind of person until I got sober and started doing work. But I would, and it's a vicious cycle because I had no self-esteem or self-worth. So that's where a lot of this comes from. And so I would say yes when I really wanted to say no. And I'd say yes, then get resentful and pissed off at the person, not myself. And then, call a girlfriend or whoever, and be like, can you believe when it was my fault? I should have just said no. So it wasn't until I got sober, and I was probably about a year sober, and I was invited to a birthday party. And this was after I started working the steps and looking inward. And my son's aunt had called and said, we're having a party for, one of her kids. And I knew that party consisted of, alcohol and whatever else. And so instead of, because I used to also, if I did say no, I always had a lie go with it. And so when she called and said, I want to invite you, I said, oh, thank you so much for thinking of me, but no, I can't make it. I didn't have to say because I have, a lie or because I just said, no, I can't. Thank you for asking me. And I was like, when I hung the phone up, I was like so excited and so proud of myself that I finally said no. And so that started for me the, being true to myself. I didn't have to, and obviously there are things, no one likes to go to funerals or wakes, but, certain things you have to do. But, like if a friend called me right now, today, at this moment and said, could you cut my hair? Honestly, at this moment, I don't feel like it. So, what I would say to her is, I'm not in the mood today. How about, today is Thursday. Yeah. I would say, how about Monday? So then I prepare myself, and Monday I will go cut her hair. But I can do that today. And it's only because I recognized that I was a people pleaser. Yeah, this will be long-winded. The next one is don't allow fear to run your life. I was, from the time I was little, and I tell this in my addiction story, which is a lot of videos down, and it's a long, so if you ever decide to ever watch it, grab yourself a cup of coffee, water, wine, whatever. But fear, I was fearful from the time I was little. Don't know where these fears came from. I mean, I had the fear of, the dark and that kind of thing. But, excuse me, I had the fear of, my father's friend had red hair. Seriously. But I guess because I was little and I had never seen anybody with red hair, so for whatever reason, though, it scared me. But I allowed fear to run my life for so many years because I always had, it's going to lead into the next thing, but I always had a negative voice playing, you know, like when I went to hairdressing school, I graduated but never took the state boards because I was afraid I'd fail. And, you know, like now I think, so you fail, you take it again, you know what I mean? But back then I didn't have that mindset. So I allowed fear and I just didn't take the state boards because fear, again, ran my life. So I would definitely tell, you know, I would definitely tell my younger self to not be afraid. I had read The Road Less Traveled, and in that, this has always stayed with me, that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's making the action despite the fear. And that is how I live my life today. Doesn't mean I'm never afraid anymore, or, you know, I'm never worried about something or anything like that. It just means that I realize, okay, I may be afraid to try something or do something, but I got to try it, I never know. So, that is another thing I would tell my younger self. This is a big one. Don't listen to the negative voice in your head. As far back as I can remember, I always had the negative voice playing, always. I came from a decent family. I was spoiled, you know, got whatever I wanted, so it wasn't like there was any abuse or anything. But I don't know. I always, my thinking was warped. Where it came from, I have no idea. But, like, I can remember saying to my mother, like, you love, you know, my brother more than you love me. That's how I perceived it. Was it true? No. I mean, we make jokes now because my mother remembers me saying these things to her, but that's how I perceived it. And then, you know, as I got older, I've always had a weight issue, and, oh, that negative voice when you're a teenager. I mean, it was a constant thing. I wasn't good enough, I wasn't pretty enough, I wasn't smart enough, I was fat, I was ugly, I was horrific, I was horrible. Who would love me? Who would want me? I mean, that voice played constantly. I felt like I never looked good. Now, the one thing I always, like, fixed my hair, always did my makeup, because I always had a love for that. But that negative voice played. And even once I got sober, when I got sober, oh, by the way, the allergies are still, my nose is a mess because of the heat. But anyway, when I got sober, it wasn't like all these negative things magically went away. You know, I realized that the alcohol and the drugs was a symptom of what was really going on with me. And what was really going on was somebody that had no self-esteem and no self-worth. So I had to learn to give myself those things. No one is going to give you or make you. You know, when I hear people say, you know, you make me so happy, I kind of cringe because happiness starts in within yourself. I feel people can add to it, but I don't feel like someone can make you. And so that positive, looking at things without a negative, it took a long time. And it doesn't mean, because today I'm 46, it doesn't mean that that negative voice never plays anymore. All this stuff went away, and no, it's something I continually work on. So it's not only telling myself when I was a teenager and in my early 20s, it's also telling me things that I just learned 5 or 6 years ago. So, and the negative voice, I'm in control of that. I am the one that can press play at any time. And it rarely comes out, but if it does, and usually it's on the outside of me. I mean, sometimes I could be hard on myself, you know, if I said something or whatever, but it's usually an outside aspect. And depending, I usually shut it down, but it's a matter of practicing that. It's not like, you know, all of a sudden you're just going to be full of positivity and think think you're the greatest thing. And you know, it takes time. I read a lot of books. I read books on self-esteem. So it's a process, and it's not, these kind of things don't happen overnight. So Don't live with regret. Now, I think I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I don't have one regret. I don't. I know a lot of people will say, oh, you know, I have regrets. I should have did this, and I could have did this, and I wouldn't. And I don't do that because I am grateful for being an alcoholic and a drug addict, because I really feel like if I didn't have that area of my life like that, I would have never had the self-awareness that I do now. I think I would have just went through life existing and, you know, just dealing, and, you know, that really, I was able to take a look deep inside and see the things that I didn't like and work on them on a daily basis. I don't regret anything. I had things that happened, you know, I got divorced, you know, I mean, supposed to move to Florida when I was younger, and, you know, the guy I was with at the time decided no. I mean, you know, people dying, and I don't regret anything at all, because there was something to be learned. There was, you know, there was a lesson in it. And my friend looks at me like I have 50 heads when I say these things, because she just doesn't understand. How do you feel that way? Like, how do you not hate? And it's, I don't hate anybody. Maybe I hate what they do or have done, but I don't hate them. I always say, you know, desperate people do desperate things, and that's sometimes what motivates people. And I may not understand it, but anyway, I'll go off on another tangent. So, also, don't try to be someone you're not. What I mean by that is, like, I compared myself constantly to other women, especially when I was in high school. And even as I was older, you know, and I always felt like if I looked like them or had the body like them, I would be happy. And it's just, it kind of all relates to the same thing. I mean, I had no self-esteem. So, like, I was looking for happiness in other places than trying to find it in myself. But I, today, am so comfortable in my own skin that I can, you know, watch the Grammys, watch the Emmys, or those type shows. And the one time I got to see J-Lo, which, you know, I love her body. And then Kate Hudson, she shocked me. She had a nice behind. And I'm like saying to Pete, oh my God, I actually rewound the TV. And I know he's looking at me like, seriously, you're insane, lady. But I'm like, I can appreciate a beautiful woman today. I don't feel threatened. I don't feel, because I'm comfortable in my own skin. So, the do's. Do love yourself. I mean, and it's really hard if you've gotten that cycle of not liking yourself. But I really believe that it's true that if you don't love yourself, you can't truly love another human being. I mean, you love them, but you really, self-love is to me the most magical, because then you can give this emotion truly to another human being. I hated myself for so many years, and it took a lot of time and effort to finally get to the place where I thought, you know, I got to like, well, you're not too bad, you're okay. And then, oh, yeah, I kind of like me, and then I love me. Like, I got to, but it was a process. Look at the positive. As I've said before, I try to see the positive in everything. And it's not to say that I won't react to something, but then I all of a sudden just go into, you know, well, that happened for a reason, or I was supposed to go through that. I look at the glass full, and it's not like but I will say, you know, I don't do all these 100% every single day of my life. I am human. In AA, there's a saying, it's progress, not perfection. And I'll never be perfect. So these are things that I continually work on a daily basis. I have to. But I do try to find the positive, in me being laid off. It was a good thing for my mental, physical, and spiritual self. But now trying to find a job, that's not going that well. But I guess I'm meant to do what I'm doing right now. Doing YouTube. But, you know what I mean? Like, for some reason I can't find a job. But I'm not going to, and I'm not going to wallow in every day. I try to find the positive in everything. Even the things that aren't the greatest thing, there's something to be learned. Something positive to come from it. Another thing I do is to think before you speak. And I've always thought like this when I got sober. Because, words stay with people. And, sometimes to me, words is worse than if you got smacked, and they could really make you believe certain things. So today, I always think, for the most part, before I speak. And sometimes it's not even what you're saying, it's how you say it. Like, somebody could say, "Oh, how you doing?" And you say, "Oh, I'm good." Or, "How you doing?" And you could say, "Good." So do you see the difference? And I always said that to a friend of mine. He'd always call me up about, girlfriend issues and stuff. And, I always said to him, sometimes it's not what you're saying, it's how you're saying it that puts somebody else on the defense. So I'm always trying to think before I speak, especially like with my kids, to try not to just react. I'm human, so I'm not perfect at it, but I do try to think before I speak. And the last one is, live life to the fullest. Now, I learned this lesson, 46, I was 39. And here is a hospice story for you. I was 39 years old, and I used to work 12-hour shifts, so I worked Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday. And, I had gotten my morning report and knew I had a patient in this one room. And I had walked past and heard her on the phone, and I was like, wow, she sounds really, I thought she was really young. Her voice was so, childlike that I thought she was younger than what she was. So when I had patients that were alert and oriented, I would always try to spend a little time with them talking. And if I didn't, I always would ask the family what they were like, because I know what disease looks like, and I know what I need to do with disease, but I want to know who I'm taking care of. I've always tried to live by that philosophy, and, just something about them. It doesn't have to be their life story, but if they want to give it to me, that I used to enjoy that too. So, I went in that morning and, introduced myself and asked her how she was doing, and, explained the whole pain management thing to her. And so I saw that she was alert and oriented enough to sit and actually have a conversation. So this was the week before my 40th birthday. And I had to put that in there because of what she said. So I'm sitting chatting with her. She was telling me where she used to work. She worked for a phone company. And so I said, can I ask you, she had breast cancer. She was 31 years old. So I asked her, what happened? How did this? And she said, well, they thought I had cellulitis. I was misdiagnosed. So I said, I was like, oh, And so I said, then, how did they eventually? She said, well, then they started running more tests when it wasn't getting better, and that's how I found out. So, now I'm sitting there, and she says, but she says, it's okay. She said, because, let's hope I can get through this. She said to me, and this is what I did when she told me this story. She said to me, you know, I'll never see 40. And I will never have children or get married. Look at me, really? She said, but I have faith in God. She said, and God's going to take care of me. And He's not going to allow me to suffer. And I will see Him very soon. And she said, I know, and I'm okay with this. And, you know, here I'm thinking, and this is exactly what I just did, and I got chills, is what I did to her, poor girl. And she started to apologize for making me cry. But this is how I was as a hospice nurse. And I said, I felt so inspired, because I'm like, here is this kid that isn't going to see 40. And, you know, it was like all of a sudden like a light bulb went off. Like, you know, sometimes you just take things for granted. And I felt like at that time in my life I was. So I try to live life to the fullest every day, because I'm not promised tomorrow. I have hope that I will wake up tomorrow, but I'm not promised it. So I want to make, really, sirens? That's why I don't have windows open. So I really believe sometimes God speaks through people, and that is how I felt. I felt so overwhelmed, and she was just, she was like an angel. And I took care of her that whole weekend. And every time we went in there, we would talk. And she wound up dying like 2 weeks later. So it's just, you know, I started to live life when I got sober. And then after a while, sometimes life takes over and you just automatically take things for granted. And I try not to do that today. So, I thank you all so much for watching. Of course, it's long-winded. Of course. Again, I don't like tagging people. Only because I can't remember who got tagged and what videos. So, if you're watching this and you would love to do this, please do it and say I tagged you. So, I thank you also for... I'm just overwhelmed now. I thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.